Hello everyone and welcome back to the Common Sense Crypto channel. As with you always, this is Rich doing another video today on XRP. So I hope you're all having a wonderful day today wherever you are in this great world. We're gonna talk about XRP. And I gotta start with this. The SEC is closing its investigation into OpenSea. This is a win for everyone who is creating and building in our space. Trying to classify NFTs as securities would have been a step backward, one that misinterprets the law and slows innovation. Every creator, big or small, should be able to build freely without unnecessary barriers. This is clearing the path forward for NFTs. I think we're going to see a massive eruption once again around NFTs going forward. And this one is big. Case dismissed. This is the Coinbase case. Two words that every defendant in every case yearns to hear. Today, we can announce upon full commission approval, SEC Gov is dropping our case. There will be no settlement or compromise. A wrong will simply be made right. We still have work to do, and we can't take our eyes off the ball. Legislation is critical to ensuring this type of unlawful behavior doesn't happen again. But what about the Ripple vs. SEC case? We're going to talk about that as well. So this comes from Eleanor Tourette. Ripple, as Cherry notes, is more procedurally complex than Coinbase because they already have an order from Judge Torres at the district level to pay the $125 million penalty. Torres, according to the final judgment, will retain jurisdiction over the case for a year until August 7, 2025, to make sure the terms of the order are met. While the SEC could choose to drop the appeal at the Second Circuit, they would also need to figure out how to approach the district court and possibly come to an agreement on the penalty ruling, reduce or ask to drop, and presumably get Torres' blessing as the presider. There's a degree of uncertainty in all of this because, as one legal source tells me, we are in uncharted territory right now. So if they were to get rid of the $125 million penalty, Judge Torres has to sign off on that. Would she do that? Possibly. I think she wants to get this case done and over with as much as we do. But we still got to wait and see where it goes from here. Jeremy Hogan said this: the Coinbase case was dismissed with prejudice, meaning it cannot be refiled later, not even a settlement agreement with some minor concessions. I guess the SEC is not waiting for Atkins to be confirmed before making big crypto moves. So they did this without Atkins. Why can't they work on the Ripple vs. SEC case without Atkins? Why can't they push to get that case dismissed or just come to a different settlement? Maybe Brad pays $10 million or even $50 million. We still got to wait and see where it goes from here. And this is what Brad Garlinghouse said. Suffice to say, as I know there are lots of impatient people, including me, this SEC has demonstrated a clear interest in moving on quickly from the failed regulation by enforcement policies of the last administration. Brad wants that case to wrap up as much as we do. He's just as impatient as we are. Think about it. You're involved in a court case. Anybody that is involved in a court case, they want that to wrap up as soon as possible. So Brad doesn't want this to drag out any longer either. Jeremy Hogan once again. An earlier resolution is definitely in play, but I'm still thinking it might be May. May or the first half of April. Just a hunch. I think that time frame fits perfectly. Now that FedWire was delayed until July, I still think it has to end before that goes live with ISO 222. But let's wait and see where it goes from here. The sooner that case ends, the sooner XRP skyrockets in price. This comes from Smoke. Yes, the Ripple vs. SEC case is cited as one of the 5 major crypto cases that will reshape digital asset regulation in 2025. This legal battle has been pivotal in defining how U.S. security laws apply to cryptocurrencies, specifically addressing the classification of digital assets and their sales structures. Since the case directly impacts regulatory frameworks, its outcome will provide clarity on compliance standards for tokens that were previously in legal limbo. The fact that Ripple vs. SEC is being documented as a precedent-setting case means XRP will not only be legally scrutinized, but also serve as a reference point for how institutions and regulators assess digital assets moving forward. I always said this case had to happen. Now we will have a clear path forward through regulations in the United States. I think the Ripple test will replace the Howey test at some point. I think this had to happen so every other case coming ahead of the Ripple vs. SEC case, coming after it, is going to have a better outcome. And I always said it happened by design. It was like watching a movie play out. And what about Archax and the $30 to $50 trillion? Take a listen to this, and then I'm going to tell you what still has to happen here.
30 to 50 trillion, all on XRP, all trading on Archax.
Here we go.
Behind my original projections, but the total market is 1.4 quadrillion, everything that's ever out there. And if you start looking across any of those asset classes, they're all starting to move on chain already. And the ease with which we've seen people interested in money market funds, tokenized treasuries, and those types of instruments, the support for stable coins, when you're talking about replacing cash, when I see DTCC, Euroclear, Clearstream, it only takes one of them to flip onto natively digital, and that's trillions of assets on its own that move. So, tens of trillions, I think we could see. And bearing in mind it's 1.4 quadrillion, this is still a tiny slice of a huge market. 30 to 50 trillion, all on XRP, all trading on Archax.
Here we go. $50 trillion.
Think about that coming on to the XRP Ledger. And you still think XRP is not going to be a 3- and 4-digit asset. It's absolutely going to happen. But what's holding this up? It's regulations. As tokenization grows, clear regulatory frameworks will be key to unlocking the market's full potential and attracting institutional investors. This will eventually lead to mass adoption over time. But there's not a clear path for tokenization either in the United States. I think that has to happen very soon as well. Think about it. BlackRock tends to move the US along quicker than most other financial institutions. And Larry Fink, he wants this to happen as soon as yesterday. So I'm expecting this to get worked on this year as well. Because once again, other countries are already pushing in this direction. The UAE's SCA has released a draft regulation for the tokenization of securities and commodities. This real-world asset is going to be massive. Tokenization is going to be huge. So if other countries are already getting ahead of the United States around tokenization, the US is going to have to pick up the pace there as well. Like I said, all you got to do is look around the rest of the world and see what's happening, and you could expect the same thing to start to be talked about here in the US soon after. XRP Ledger's Federated Byzantine Agreement consensus mechanism gives it a clear edge over Bitcoin and Ethereum, making it faster, cheaper, and more scalable for payments. This is why the Federal Reserve will choose XRP over Bitcoin and ETH. Unlike Bitcoin and Ethereum, which relies on energy-intensive mining, and volatile transaction fees, the XRP Ledger offers efficiency, cost predictability, and built-in compliance features. These factors align with the Fed's need for a controlled, reliable, and scalable payment system that can support institutional and cross-border transactions without the limitations of proof of work or congestion-driven cost. Like I said, that's why the Fed is going to choose to utilize XRP. They're also going to utilize HBAR through drop. XLM will play a key in there as well. But whenever we talk about payments and Fed now, I always thought, at some point, we are going to be getting paid on a daily basis. You go to work, you punch the time card, and you get paid the whole time you're there. And then when you punch out, the money hits your account all throughout the day. And people said that would never happen, but it's going to happen because we're already going in this direction. And even Brad talked about this in the past. Take a listen.
Here in Singapore, I believe you get paid once a month. In the United States, you get paid once every 2 weeks. Has everybody thought about why you get paid once a month or once every 2 weeks? It comes down to the friction of payments. And if we can remove the friction of payments, why can't you get paid every day? Or even more crazily, why don't you get paid every hour or every second? You could have a stream of value showing up in your whatever repository of value. Now, why you need to get paid every second, I'm not sure. But I do think there's a lot of dynamics that have been built around getting paid every 2 weeks or getting paid every month. And as we remove the friction of payments and make that dramatically easier, I think you're going to see secondary and tertiary effects that are very difficult to predict, just like we couldn't have predicted Grab 20 years ago.
That comes from Rowan Exchange. And I think we're going to see that. And I think it's going to be automated. In other words, small businesses are going to incorporate AI into their payment structure and their accounting structure as well. I even see companies out there offering this solution like an AI agent. I'm going to do another video around AI for later today. But once that happens, every time you go to work, you will just get paid daily. You'll get paid every hour. If you're there an hour, you could leave after an hour and the money will already be in your account. But this is what XRP does. It fixes that by taking out all of that friction that's in the system right now. Even the back-end systems, they're congested with friction. That's why Swift is not so swift. It's a 50-year-old outdated system that is in need of a major upgrade. This is why Swift will work with Ripple and others going forward, because that's what the world wants, real-time payments. And I thought this was great. Frictionless payments, one step closer to bingo. And this is the XRP Riddle Bingo. So you see, level playing field, rules of the road, cross-border, internet of value, walled gardens, frictionless payments, bridging legacy systems, instant global settlement, interoperability, empowering unbanked communities. That's a big one. Next generation payment rails. They're already put in place all around the world. Financial inclusion, liquidity on demand, regulation by enforcement. We're already done with that chapter. That chapter is closing. Regulatory clarity is the next chapter going forward. And DLT, distributed ledger technology. All of this is built around XRP. And I thought that was a great post. That's why I wanted to share it with all of you. But, we are going to see the internet of value. It's coming. The Finternet is coming. Nothing is slowing that down. Whenever you see Brad get a seat at the table with the IMF, the BIS, and so on, whenever they're sitting there, they're talking about payments. How can they fix the current financial system? We don't even really need a new financial system for XRP to succeed. It can fix this system. I think everybody agreed on a new system, though. I mean, think about it. You could easily transition over. You tie AI into the current financial system, along with blockchain, DLT, and a handful of cryptocurrencies, and everything could transition from what we have now right into the digital age. Is that going to happen? Or do we need to have the crash first? Because once again, I still see more and more people talking about this massive crash. I look at it like this. No matter how this plays out, us as XRP holders, we get rich in the end. No matter what. There's no alternative where we don't get rich at this point. You know, a couple years ago, if I was talking to you about XRP and a new financial system, I would be telling you it's most likely 3, 4, 5, 6 years out. Now I think it's only maybe 2 years, maybe not even that. Maybe within the next 18 months, we will see the beginnings of a new financial system happening. Because AI is not slowing down, blockchain's expanding, it's getting integrated into a lot of banking systems, crypto's not going anywhere, so why not just fast track everything into the new financial system? I think it's all about regulations at this point. Once they have all the guardrails in place, all the safeguards, that's when we will see the transition happen. But like I said, there's no alternative where we don't get rich. That's the way I look at it. But until it happens, stay patient, stay positive, and let's get rich together. With that said, I'm going to wrap up this video. I want to thank you all for watching. I appreciate all of you. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great night.